next year will be the next year in which they will win again. And we know that a lot of players in the national football team actually do not come from England. For example, Jiggers, he was not English neither. And it's because of this political reason that Britain is now able to send 4 teams to represent it. Okay, that has really enlightened me. I have been in Britain for several years and I have watched football teams many times. But I cannot differentiate between the different matches. For example, the different clubs as well, Chelsea, Liverpool, Manchester United. Can you tell us a bit about how can we differentiate between these different matches and these different clubs? Talk about how these matches operate. Okay, let's talk about this. Talking about the operation mechanism of English football system, we have to talk about football itself. Football was something that came later. Before that, people were into rugby. So England is a place of gentlemen, so people say this kind of rugby is too violent. They couldn't get injured because they have work to do. In the past, there are a lot of industrial workers and people working on the port. So people really wanted to develop a more civilized kind of sport, so to speak. And football, in the earliest stage, it had a lot of participants, the working class especially. So people began to have a lot of matches, and then that gave rise to a lot of football clubs, and then engendering the football teams. This can be profitable, can be done by registered companies. So a person in Britain is set up a FA Cup, that is the world's first professional football competition. And then more merchants want to play a role, wants to earn money from this. So they want to have this event as a long-term event. Currently, we know the Premier League is the highest level of competitions of football in the UK, and then we have other matches, other league matches. We have a lot of fans in England, and then we also have a lot of football clubs. They're commercially oriented. Okay, thank you for that knowledge. And just behind us, we see this red building. It's American Press, the headquarters of the American Press in Europe. So let's continue our topic. This bridge that we're walking on. Can we take a look around? This place is very, it's full of, it's a very busy street. But actually, our broadcasting is not commercial in nature. If we want to have commercial activity here, actually, in Britain, according to the law, we have to get the permit of the landowners. The private road here is a very important place. It's a kind of a boutique that sells a lot of souvenirs. In Britain, we know this is a country for tourism, and we have a lot of souvenirs sold for tourists. And also, these souvenirs are characterized by the royal family culture and a lot of museums. So, what do you know about some of the souvenirs for World Cup? This is a lot of profit, right? Well, when we talk about souvenirs, it's like bags and keys. But World Cup is an international event. So the biggest trade for World Cup is two. One is football, one is beer, and another is the shirt, football shirt, sold for fans. People of England are so fascinated by football culture, so they are really into buying these stuff. And we know London is a big metropolis with a lot of international fans, people like me. Because I am from China and China has not qualified for the World Cup. And I'm also a fan of the Netherlands, but Netherlands has also not made it to the World Cup. Now we have all these kind of designs. In the past, we have like a Nigerian shirt that is really very fancy, and even those who are not from Nigeria and those who are not fans of Nigeria will go to buy this kind of shirt. So I would say this is the most ludicrous business for football. This is a kind of the football shirt, and another is beer. Now, just to interrupt. So this kind of derivative products, are they sold in like special stores, not in these kind of boutiques? Yes. So they have these kind of licensed stores selling the shirts. This is a very ludicrous business. Not everyone is able to operate. So you talk about beer just now. This is something that really interests me. And looking there, you can see this KL. Can we take a closer look? It's like a pub, right? KL. It's a big pub locally in the city center. I have been here for several years, so I'm a fan of pub, and I always get beer in the pubs. And sometimes I will order beer, but sometimes they couldn't understand me. They couldn't understand my orders. Why? Because locally they have other names like ale. In the 19th century and before, we had this kind of beer that were especially popular, made in a special way, that has very good fragrance. But in the past, this kind of beer was not able to be preserved for a very long time. But after the Industrial Revolution, we began to be able to mass-produce beer, and they started to assume another name. And after beer was spread to the United States and other countries, they also produced this kind of mass-produced beer. We also have beer in China, like Qingdao beer. All this kind of beer were based on this industrial capacity to mass produce stuff. So, but British people were very nostalgic and they really like to drink this ale. Very expensive. Yes, you're right. Because of the development of industrialization and because of commercialization, the ale of England was not very suitable for long-time preservation and transport. So that's why we began to have lager, another kind of a beer that is suitable for long-time preservation and transport. Like Heineken. What's the big difference? Ale is based on, lager is based on grist, whereas ale, to make ale, you have to add elements from fruits. So that gives it a special fragrance, and the taste is very structured. You have different layers of taste. I am a fan of Indian Pale Ale, and it has a story behind. In the past, we know that when Britain was a very big empire, they have established a company, the Eastern Indian Company, and they want to drink beer. They also wanted to sell beer. And in the past, we need to use water transport, and that took a lot of time. And during that time, beer will go bad. So they found that when beer arrived, the taste will already be changed, and therefore they will add more alcohol in it, about 10%. So then, after this transport, some alcohol will evaporate. But because initially the level of alcohol was high, so after evaporation, the taste would be just right. Yeah, and the color looked a bit different, like they have this kind of a bit reddish beer, which really tastes well. And when watching football matches, and that is really very good to have some beer with you. And as we just said, England was the origin of modern football, and also it's like also one of the origins of modern beer. And after drinking beer, we began to see people that even are some employees and college students. They started to not be able to behave themselves after drinking. You know, they suddenly became sort of enter into something like a maniac. Yes, alcohol is really the devil behind, but it's not the only devil behind hooliganism. Just as we have talked about the fact that football in the past belonged to the working class, and in the society also belonged to a lot of the general public, the workers. And compared to other people in the past, these people, they would like to gather together, and then after working for a long day in the leisure time, they will drink some beer when watching football games, and then they began to form what we call hooliganism, because they want to compete with other groups of fans. And at that time, it was really like gangs. There are people that were not very well educated, and then coupled with the effect of alcohol, they began to really become very violent. And whenever later on there was games, there were football club organized football matches, they began to go there and then deliberately have this kind of violent activity. It's really like gangs, as you just said. And in recent years, we know that public security in Britain is not as good as in the past. We began to have more theft and more criminal deeds. What's the most fearing is that even you get people attacking others after drinking beer with acid. And there was one incident in which a boy shot the water gun at one of his friends. He was only an elementary school student, as you see. This is not the worst. The worst is that we have terrorists that really took the opportunity of major international football events to attack people. This is really scaring people. So what should we do? Well, just as you said, pouring acid to people's faces, theft, vandalism. Well, actually, these were maniacs, and sometimes they were not related to football hooliganism. We have violence everywhere, not just here, and that really caught the eyes of the media. So that received a lot of media coverage. In Manchester City, after one of the concerts, there was a organized bomb explosion, resulting in a lot of casualties and injuries, and affecting people's mind as well. And then there was another incident in London. There was a crash, and there were also injuries and casualties after that incident. After the year 2000, or around the year 2000, we began to see the rise of organized crimes. When Blair was the prime minister, there were major terrorist attacks, and then tanks were even mobilized to suppress these kinds of terrorism. And after that, the government has begun to take measures against terrorism, but they were not living up to my expectation. I thought that they will take even harsher measures. After the explosion and before the crash on the London Bridge, we couldn't feel that British government was mobilizing strong police. It's only after these two incidents broke out that I started to see armed police patrolling on streets. All the subway stations and rail stations and the King's Cross station, for example, they haven't set up security checks, and there were no police standing guard. So after these two incidents, the mayor of London said we had to really crack down on this terrorist deeds. So then it's really after that we began to see more police patrolling on streets. But it's mostly they were not armed police. They were ordinary police officers. Just the day before yesterday, in the city center rail station, they found something. They found some explosives, and later on they found it was a person that has lost his mind putting this explosives there. And here we can see on this river we have some of the also some wild ducks. This is not a natural river, it's a man-made river, and going west for 4 miles, we have an open water area. Have you been there? No, haven't been there yet. It's very beautiful. And there were a lot of ships, cruises, and a lot of tourists wish to take this kind of cruises to go west. It's a very famous tourist route. Now, this is a public area here, so it's not like before. A moment ago, we were in a private area, so now we're in a public area. Let us walk around. This bridge, we have a ramp here, so pay attention. So you are an international student. As I know, you spent your elementary school time in China, and then you go to Singapore, and then you went to Britain. So you must know more about Britain compared with other people. What about sports education in Britain, and especially football education? Is there any difference compared to China? Of course. In China, we have, of course, a gap between sports education between China and the US, and now China is trying to emulate the practice of Britain. For example, children aged 7, 8, or 9, when students were having sports lessons in school, when the coach saw this boy or this girl has talent, they will then transfer them to the youth camp or the youth system. And if the youth system spots you as a talent, they will pay very much attention to you and also give you courses in the humanities. And after you reach the age of 14 or 15, you will then be asked to sign a contract so that you will stay here. If they do not want to keep you, they will then transfer you to other teams. So here, the players are treated like a commodity with a fixed price. After you have completed your training in the youth system, you will be elevated to the third level team, the second level team, or the first level team. We have a lot of very talented people spotted in this youth system. So different football teams, they have different youth systems. Starting from a very early age, that they try to train you and they sign contract with you. Like we have the former coach of Arsenal Football Club. He was a very shrewd economist. The biggest contribution he has made to the football club is, like we know, in the past, this football club ran into a lot of debt. But after this coach took office, he started to do a lot of commercial operations, selling the football players at very high prices. They transferred the players to continental Europe, for example, earning a lot of money. And that has gone a long way toward paying back the debt for building the stadiums. So, in my opinion, I think he really has done a lot of contribution, made a lot of contribution. And he has been there for like 20 years, right? Yes. That has really led to a lot of glory for the football club and producing a lot of new talents as well. He's a very then accomplished coach, let's say. Yes. And another question from me. So today is like June the 24th, and it has been 10 days into the World Cup. And we found a lot of surprises, some like Mexico, Croatia, and maybe some other teams. There was rumor that we had Cora and Ledbrick, these two lottery companies, they were operating the football matches. They were manipulating the scores. Have you heard this rumor? Yes, of course. You know, betting on football matches has been around for many years. And in the past, I thought the football cup, the World Cup is something relatively fair, but still we have manipulators. So we heard in rumors. And in South Asia, there was one person that can dominate the European UEFA Champions League competition. So after that incident, we began to see a lot of reforms on the European side and also on FIFA side. That has done something, of course, this kind of reform to crack down on this kind of manipulation. But this World Cup, as you said, is the event that has given us a lot of surprises. But let's call it a very splendid World Cup because the different countries, they have developed their football over the past 4 years with a growing economy. In the public opinion, this might be something that is out of expectation. For example, Iceland. Other teams, they heard that Iceland has been doing a lot of training. They've been training very hard, so they feared Iceland. But this is something that is very normal. And people like me, who are really not real fans of football, we really enjoy this kind of football matches. And there were some football players from Iceland. There were actually other professionals from other industries like dentists. There were dentists among the football players of Iceland. So that really makes it very interesting for people like me, for lay people like me. Just now, you said you are a fan of the Netherlands. Why? The Heineken there, the Heineken beer, So there you can see the logo. I don't think that the Netherlands owns a lot of football stars. Why is it that Netherlands is your favorite? This is a very difficult question. I like the Netherlands because, well, the Netherlands have very good techniques, scoring goals and other techniques. They have done very well, but it's really a pity that they haven't made it to the World Cup this year. I have my own stars, my own definition of stars in the Netherlands. Some of the players in the Netherlands teams are really my heroes. So after some old stars in the Netherlands team retired, it's very difficult for the young generation to have the same level of techniques. Now, let's talk about the style of the Netherlands. They have very smooth attacks. They have very fast speed. And the Premier League is known for very harsh confrontation and very good pace. But this is different from the Netherlands in terms of the style. So when this kind of the Netherlands team is my favorite, but when it failed in certain matches, I also felt a lot of regret. A lot of strong teams like France, Spain. Can you talk a bit more about them? And also Italy, Spain, France. We had journalists from CCTV that really is a fan of these teams. So, and people say Spain is very likely to be the winner this time. What do you think? Now let's talk about Germany first. The style of Germany is very steady. It's very good technical support, strategic support, even better than the Netherlands. The Netherlands is characterized very much by individualism because the overall competency of the Netherlands team is just so, but they have a few stars that are really very powerful. Germany is known for steadiness. So I think hopes are high for Germany to be winning again as the defending champion. Well, Spain, in the current football techniques, we have a problem for the Spanish team is because many of their players are already advanced in years, a bit old. So it's very difficult to keep the former vigorous style of football techniques. But this is only my personal view. So don't really bet your football money on my words. Well, we've been talking a lot about football. You haven't talked about France yet. Yeah, it's really France. It's really disappointing for me because they haven't got a lot of good smooth attacks. They have a player that is really that needs a lot of support. But now we don't see France really playing very competitively, so I'm not betting my hopes on France. Let's change to another spot because we have too many people here. It's too crowded here. Let's move to a place where we can see a bit of scenery. How about here?
说实话啊，这个咱们今天话题呢不是
Frankly,
漫谈的英国足球文化嘛，咱还是以英格
So
兰为主。
our topic is really the football culture of England. So let us return to England.
这个明星球员就是贝克汉姆，有小贝。为什么你知道吗？
I know
4年前
Beckham
在那个巴西世界杯的时候
Well,
我采访了他
because 4 years ago in the World Cup in Brazil, I interviewed him
分钟，哎呦，没想到我这个话痨。
for 15 minutes. But because I was so talkative, I kept talking.
是吧？那他们就是哎呀，这边那个就是一趟经纪人当时就急了啊，唐先生，
And the people at that time were so worried.
小贝说话挺
Can you really finish on time?
那个合影呢。
Actually, I had a photo together with him. That really made me proud.
小贝太帅了。
I want to show you this photo because he was so handsome and that has dwarfed me.
说是已经昨日黄花了。我
Beckham, however, is someone in the past, but now, today, what's the biggest star? Oh, it's Harry Kane, the captain.
咱们就关照。这个，但是他很年轻啊，作为那个队长。
He's very young, right? As a captain, he's just 24 years old. Harry Kane
那么我们知道哈利凯恩目前是
is indeed a very young player, and he is the English person with the highest income in Premier League. If I remember correctly,
在英超里面啊，整个
his salary was 200,000 British pounds every week. But he was not the highest. There was another player that earns 500,000 pounds every week. Harry Kane was really the big star in the team.
高的期望，哎，害了鲁尼，我觉得。什么英格兰所有
And people have high hopes, high expectations on him.
鲁尼压力太大了，而且鲁尼的头发。
And there is another star, Rooney. People of expectations for him were on the decline, but in this match, we found Harry Kane really performing well, especially in the last game. British beat another team 2-1, and at that time, Harry Kane headed the ball into the net. So doing a lot of wonderful attacks. We have some other good players, but unfortunately, the coach of the British national team, the English national team, is not into this kind of player. So still, Harry Kane is the big star now. This kind of player can earn a lot of salaries, but it's also very costly to train a star. Yes. So for us ordinary people, it's really very far away from us, it seems. Harry Kane and people like him, just 12 or 13 years ago. And also we know that his wife, his current wife, used to be a fan of Beckham. They had also a little girl. And this was really a very young couple, very handsome, very beautiful. So Harry Kane is really the hero that is leading the team forward. And just now you also say it was 52 years ago, in 1966, that England was able to win. So how about this time? When will they able to go to the quarterfinals, semi-finals, or even winning the championship? Well, the coach has been developed as someone, the helmsman for the next 10 years. So it's a long-term plan. And then we have big stars that are really giving a lot of values and emphasis on team spirit. So I will say that the England team has good potential.
这个最有意思，但是最招人反感的一件事情，猜球。
猜球，那不反感不反感。
And having guesses, this is something people really hate to do, but let's do it.
为什么呢？
I have very high expectations to England in this round because it has already finished two good matches already, and the next round for England is against Belgium. We know that a lot of stars are from Belgium in European football clubs. They're Belgians. And in this kind of championship, so they know a lot about each other. They're very familiar with each other's techniques. And in the next match between Britain and Panama, between England and Panama, England will aim for 3-2-1, a victory of 3-0, because they will not wait until the match with Belgium. That's very difficult. So in the next match with Panama, they will try 3-0. Now, can you also predict the Belgium and England's? What's the score? What's your guess? Well, it really depends on how they do in this round of match. So you will have to look at what's on their mind. But this is something far away. Let's suppose that if these two teams fight to their best, I will say that maybe Belgium will win. And the best that England can do maybe is just a draw. That's my personal opinion. I really like ale. Now, we are coming to a close of our dialogue. Just now you said European teams are strong. Now, how about Latin America? For example, teams of Brazil. Here in this football World Cup, they have a very good lineup this year, but there were two downsides. That is, players in Latin America, they have this. They're very passionate, but they are easily outraged, so they sometimes are not very steady. And another characteristic is that, for example, in the last match, Neymar was swinging, rotating for like 3 rounds because of complaining about the referee's judgment. This is something that is not good. So we have this kind of characteristic of players from Latin America because they are easily angered, they're easily agitated. Now, returning to the football culture of England, we hope that the England's football team can advance to greater accomplishments and even to the 8th final. So after it has moved to the 8th final, let's restart our dialogue again. Because of time limitation, we have to stop here, and we really want to thank Wang for his ideas, and I would also like to thank my colleagues to prepare this broadcasting for you. The purpose of having this broadcast is to enable our viewers to have more knowledge about football and really enjoy football. Thank you.